You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Welcome to the program, everyone. Okay, so Donald Trump ran Pelosi out of the speakership. You know, Nancy Pelosi is no longer Speaker of the House. She's not even going to attempt to be the Speaker. I'm going to play you her goodbye moment, and then we'll talk about it. But she is no longer the Speaker of the House because of Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump, I want you guys to think about this. What has he accomplished out of office, right? He's accomplished a lot, but I'll tell you what his two biggest accomplishments since he left office, and this guy, Donald Trump, has accomplished more out of office than any other president ever has done, right? Got rid of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. She's been Speaker of the House for 29 years. That's a big deal, okay? And he overturned Roe v. Wade and saved millions of lives from now and forever. That is pretty good. If Donald Trump did nothing else, those two things are massive, especially Roe v. Wade. So let's play this. I got some stuff. We got to play this. I want to first play Nancy Pelosi's goodbye speech, and she quotes from the Bible. All right, listen.
Now we must move boldly into the future, grounded by the principles that have propelled us this far and open to fresh possibilities for the future. Scripture teaches us that for everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. My friends, no matter...
You know, I wonder if Pelosi really knew that Bible verse, or is that just she just knows the song?
Yeah, maybe.
You know, that's what I'm wondering.
When was the last time Nancy Pelosi read the Bible?
Or spoke of it like that?
Or, no, I'd like to know the last time she opened one and actually read it.
I don't know. What's the Bible tell you about your lifetime support of abortion, by the way, Nancy? All right, back to this.
What title you all, my colleagues, have bestowed upon me, Speaker, Leader, Whip, there is no greater official honor for me than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. Okay, now, that was the main reason I played this. I'm going to play the rest. That's almost over. But when she said, speak for the people of San Francisco, in all the years that I've heard this House, they call her Madam Speaker, this House Madam, I think that's good. I like that, House Madam. Yeah, I'm sure Hunter knows all about House Madams. He probably knows quite a few of them personally.
Probably.
Has them on speed dial, you know. But anyway, this House Madam here, this is the first time I've ever heard Nancy Pelosi, when she's speaking, talking about representing the people of San Francisco. I've never heard her say the city of...
In fact, a lot of people might not even know
that she represents San Francisco. Well, after her husband was found 2:30 in the morning with a nudist in San Francisco, they have an... But I've never heard her mention that ever before. All right, well, let's get back to it. This is the big goodbye of the House Madam, Nancy Pelosi.
Than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
Okay, now I am sure that everyone is going to pick up on this. When she says defending the Constitution, what she means is from Donald Trump.
Right.
And, you know, I'm going to play in a moment here one more sound clip. It's not a bite. It's a little long, but it's NBC News and their analysis of Nancy Pelosi after she signed off, and it's unbelievable. But, you know, Donald Trump did this, and I think other than us, I have not heard anyone say that Donald Trump did this. He ran Nancy Pelosi out of the speakership.
Yeah.
And, this thing when they talk about defending democracy and defending the Constitution, they're not really talking about January 6th. See, you people out there, you and me, the voters, we're not supposed to have a say, right? We have this two-party system, and what happens is in every election, these two parties that are really one party, the uniparty, put up candidates and tell us who we're going to vote for. And that's how they do it. And Donald Trump is the very first president, at least in the modern era, the very first president. There may be someone back in the 1800s. There is one person I kind of think, but I don't want to get sidetracked. But President Trump is the only president, maybe, and I think this is probably true going all the way back to General Washington. He's the only president who's been truly chosen by the people, not the political powers of the day. Even, Eisenhower wasn't involved in politics. They say, well, you don't become a five-star general unless you're really connected politically. And he was picked. A lot of people don't know this. Eisenhower really was retired, and, everybody knows he played golf. His golf buddies were like the oil executives and auto executives and stuff. And they said, hey, why don't you run for president? He wasn't even registered to vote. He didn't even own a house until after he got out of the Army. He didn't own a house till he was in his 50s, Eisenhower. He gave this guy the country. So, he was put up by powerful people. Donald Trump, when I say he's truly the only person elected by the people, I think he is the only person to achieve the presidency without having the big donors and the political establishment behind him ever. And these people in Washington, they don't like that. And they're so sick and twisted, they don't even realize it. The other day, Pelosi said she comes from a political family. These people are lords and ladies of the manor. And they're in their mind, they're nobility. And it's their country. We just live in it. And Donald Trump has put the people in control, and they can't handle it. And the first time I saw this with Pelosi was during those town halls in 2010 over the Obamacare, when people were showing up peacefully protesting. And Nancy Pelosi had an emergency press conference, and she looked terrified. And she said, you can find this on YouTube, I'm sure. It's been a long time. But she said, to my Republican colleagues, get control of your people, she said. Because conservatives for the first time were out there voicing their opposition to something, and they were losing control over the people. And this idea that we have a free country is more of an idea than a reality, it seems. You know what I mean? And that's why they hate Trump. So after she signed off, and by the way, she was wearing that white pantsuit that all those Democrat ladies wore during the State of the Union Trump gave when they, I think it's the one where is it the one where she tore up the
I think so.
State of the Union?
Yeah.
So this is NBC News. It starts with Andrea Mitchell, and they're giving their analysis of Pelosi and this historic stateswoman who has resigned or not resigned. She's still going to be in Congress, but stepping down as speaker, and they get all crazy. Listen.
And just think of the things, of the moments, the way she counteracted Donald Trump. She became the single strongest opponent to Donald Trump when he was president, tearing the speech. Let's see if we can pull up some of those pictures, those incredible pictures.
By the way, tearing up the speech is the destruction of U.S. government property and is a felony. All right.
With the State of the Union speech, again, often wearing that white suit, symbolic, of course, for the whole women's movement, going back to Seneca Falls, and tearing up the speech at the State. You remember that? And also pointing to the president and walking out. There, we've got the picture.
So I want you to think about this. Nancy Pelosi has been in leadership for 29 years. She's been involved in politics even back in the 60s when Kennedy was around, okay, President Kennedy. And out of half a century plus of being involved in politics, her greatest accomplishments are Trump. It's really strange, isn't it?
Of her just throwing down the speech, and everyone was just, shocked by it, but also...
And, that State of the Union speech is when he was talking about COVID before anyone was talking about COVID. right? He was putting on the first restrictions. He was talking about what was going on and all of this. And she tore up that speech that when he first was talking about COVID.
Many were cheering the fact that she was simply ripping through the copy of the speech that was such a controversial State of the Union speech from the new president.
And so Pelosi making a nod to all of those as she stood there in that iconic white pantsuit that we have seen.
You know, it's so interesting what some people think are important. There's a lot of emphasis put by these news people of this white suit they call iconic, historic. It's just a pantsuit that all these women wore, and they've created the idea that it is almost like a national treasure that should be in a museum.
I was just going to say, I bet after she's gone, they're going to put it in the Smithsonian.
Well, I
bet you $1 million.
I went to...
they've probably already talked to her about it.
I've been places where they have iconic things like... I've been to the Smithsonian, and they have Lincoln's hat.
They're going to put that suit there.
Yeah, I went to Ford's Theater. They have the coat that President Lincoln wore that night. You know, that's right. This is and you know what else they'll put next to the white suit? The torn up State of the Union papers.
Like it was some big monumental
moment in history.
Well, they're obsessed with Trump.
Well, we're obsessed with Trump too. No, but in a good way.
They talk about him. I always say all roads lead to Trump with these people. I mean, everything bad in the world, everything wrong with the world, leads to Trump. Nothing good. And I love how the media has completely ignored the fact that she was voted out of her position. They're acting like she's made this sacrificial decision, like she's stepping down for the next generation. No, she's stepping down as speaker because the people voted her out.
Trump pushed her out of the speakership.
Exactly, but they're never, ever going to give him credit for that. They don't even acknowledge that we won the House hardly, and they act like it's no big deal. But like I said on the other show, in January, they're going to see what a big deal it is because you're going to see a major tone shift with her no longer in power and controlling things.
Well, let me get back. This is back to NBC News and their moment after Pelosi's announcement.
Union speech from the new president.
And so Pelosi making a nod to all of those as she stood there in that iconic white pantsuit that we have seen her wear time and again at these momentous historical inflection points, a nod to the suffragettes and the women's movement.
By the way, the suffragettes were Republicans. The Democrats were opposed to women getting the right to vote, and the suffragettes were Republicans.
Exactly. I was also struck there too, and you and I and Kristen Welker, all of us were talking about this, the important moments legislatively that she led on the battlefield here in Congress, talking about passing the Affordable Care Act.
Which doesn't exist anymore, right? Trump got rid of that, the Obamacare. Affordable Care Act, that's Obamacare, gone thanks to Trump.
Under Barack Obama, she was so integral to the passage of that legislation. Everyone who was involved at the time says it could not have been done without someone like Speaker Pelosi at the fore of the Democratic conference moving that legislation along. And then, of course, the work that she's done over the course of the pandemic, the work that she did.
What did she do during the pandemic?
She went and got her hair done without wearing a mask.
You know, that's exactly right. You know, President,
that's all anybody saw her do.
She did nothing except what Kathy said. You know, when the entire nation was shut down and small business owners that owned barbershops and beauty salons were going out of business, Nancy Pelosi broke the law, went to her beauty salon and got her hair done, and she got caught, okay? And so far as what she did during the pandemic, she did nothing. President Trump was in charge of the pandemic response.
Over the course of the pandemic, the work that she did on accountability around Donald Trump during the era of his government.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on listening to Nancy Pelosi. And, one thing that really shined through was her deep patriotism, her love of country.
I didn't hear a love of country.
These people are on another freaking planet.
I know, they're crazed.
It really shows you what sycophants they are. These are their rock stars. These people in the media, these liberal politicians are their gods. They worship them, and they can do no wrong.
That's right.
And they're talking about her like she's gone permanently, and they're giving a eulogy or something, or in memorial. I don't understand.
They're acting like she's
still in Congress. She's still alive. She just won't be speaker anymore
because of Trump.
But they're acting like they're in memorial right now. It's really weird how they're talking about about
or
her.
that she's chosen to retire. And I'll tell you,
or that too.
Nancy Pelosi has zero accomplishments. She has zero accomplishments.
Well, she did accomplish bringing in drugs and bums and
true,
and trash into her once beautiful city.
Yeah, that's true.
And reflecting on looking at the people in the audience, and yes, it was despicable that the Republicans couldn't stand, but looking at the Democratic members, at times they love her, at times they fear her, but they always respected her. And, I look towards what may happen come January 1st in a potential Speaker McCarthy, and I think Kevin McCarthy is not respected nor feared, and will probably be a complete train wreck as a speaker.
Okay. All right. Now, well, I don't want to talk about him right now. We'll finish up with Pelosi. This memorializing they're doing of this career of nothingness. Right now, what she's doing is trying to work out a deal to give her seat to her daughter, to allow her daughter to inherit her congressional seat. That's one thing. Her marriage is in shambles. Her husband was found at 2:30 in the morning with a nudist man, in their home when she was out of town after he had this drunken driving thing recently. So her home's in a wreck. Her husband and her have been involved in many insider trading. His stock picks, Paul, this is true. You can look this up. Paul Pelosi's stock pick performance outperforms all of the top hedge funds on Wall Street because she knows they pick companies. He buys the stocks for 10 cents a share. She's been passing legislation giving government contracts and deals to those companies, and the stocks go up. And they're also involved in a lot of crooked deals on a local level in the Bay Area as well. She is as corrupt as Joe Biden. Maybe even more corrupt, because she's, most of his corruption where he's made all this money has been in recent years. She hasn't been in Congress one moment where she wasn't doing it, all right? She was doing crime on day one because she was already one of the political families. Biden wasn't connected politically when he first got in, so he might have had a year or two before he got involved in some of the corruption. This woman has been in government for one reason and one reason only: to make money selling favors and crooked deals as a public elected federal official. And there's nothing about this woman on. Donald Trump didn't take a penny. He didn't take Donald Trump tried to not take a salary, but he was required to do it. So he donated it every time he got paid. Pelosi, on top of all of her stealing and crooked dealings, takes the salary, right?
Well, she needs some pocket change. That's her $200,000 or whatever a year.
Yeah, that $25,000 refrigerators.
That's just
in
her extra money that she walks around with in her purse.
Oh my goodness,
her Louis Vuittons and stuff.
Well, let me tell you, no one is going to give Donald Trump credit for running her out of the speakership. She would still be speaker for many years to come, for the rest of her life, if it was not for Donald Trump.
She is stepping down not because she's some wonderful person, because she was voted out of that position.
That's right.
Make no bones about it. That's the only reason that she will not be speaker. They're acting like she's some sanctimonious, I'll use that word, sanctimonious person
yes, I like
who's just answering a higher calling and sacrificing her spot for
passing the torch to the younger generation.
No. She was voted out.
That's right.
And that's exactly what happened. But they're not going to talk about that on the news.
That's right.
They're just going to continue to kiss her butt.
That's fine. Let them do it, and we'll continue to talk about it. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, there's a lot more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We'll be right back.
Comedy podcast fans, there's a podcast that will have you on the floor laughing. Gene and Ozzy bring you the company of two fun-loving and joke-cracking old friends. They're two old friends that discuss all kinds of things, but no controversial subjects and no politics. It's a fun and clean time you can count on to make you smile. It's perfect for your drive to or home from work. Take a break from the stresses of life and have a chuckle as you listen to Gene and Ozzy discuss your favorite topics.
Hey, I'm Gene.
Hola, I'm Ozzy. Welcome to the Gene and Ozzy Show.
Did you want to be Darth Vader?
Never.
What?
No, that was not my favorite character on Star Wars. And sometimes you had no idea how to even play the game. I can't describe Joust to you. I had no idea what that game was all about.
Stuart had more toys than I did.
You know, I got to meet the Stuart one of these days. Is he alive?
He's still alive. He's our age, and
at our age, you got to ask, is he alive? Like the kids ruled the world in the 1980s. Everyone,
we ruled the world in the 1980s.
Yeah, of course, parents still beat us to death, but we felt like we had the upper hand on.
Parents had the real control, but in our brains, we ruled the world. The thing about my Aunt Lizzie was she had a smoker's voice, and it was like this. And see your Aunt Lizzie. Sounds like you were alfalfa in school.
Oh, it was terrible. Beyond your imagination how terrible I looked during school days. What were the shoes that we would wear in the 70s and 80s?
Buster Brown shoes?
Buster Browns. Buster Browns.
The Gene and Ozzy Show, brought to you by your favorite host, Gene and Ozzy. Find these two funny guys on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform. Add the Gene and Ozzy Show to your playlist right now. Millions of kids ride the bus to and from school every day. When your child is new to bus riding, there are safety rules they need to know to make their journey enjoyable. The book from author Millie D'Onofrio, The Bus Ride to School, available on Amazon, tells children how much fun a school bus ride can be if you listen and follow the safety rules of the bus driver. The Bus Ride to School is filled with great illustrations, as well as a cute melodic tone to it. It's educational and fun, perfect for your children, grandchildren, and teachers for classroom reading. The Bus Ride to School, from author Millie D'Onofrio. Order your copy right now on Amazon. Finding cool and unique gifts for the nerd in your life can be tricky. Luckily, LVL Uplife on Etsy makes it easy to find awesome accessories and apparel. Cuddle up with their Jack Skellington Nightmare Before Christmas throw pillow and their comfy Ditto Pokemon blanket. Add some interdimensional fun to any desk with their Rick and Morty mouse pad, stocked with Pokemon, League of Legends, anime, Rick and Morty, and much, much more. There's something for everyone. Give your friends and family, or maybe yourself, the gift of epic nerd accessories and apparel from LVL Uplife on Etsy. Go to Etsy.com and search LVL Uplife. That's all one word. LVL Uplife on Etsy. Order now.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, as we celebrate Donald Trump removing Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. Okay. Sheila Jackson Lee, everything, she's in Congress, been there a long time. With Sheila Jackson Lee, everything is racism, right? Including COVID. And this is just so strange. And, I really thought a few years ago, we were at this point where these old-time 60 radical type racists were going to be retired, and we get a new generation of post-racial Democrats. And that's just never going to happen.
They're worse now. The younger generation is worse.
It seems to be.
And they didn't even live through that stuff.
No.
These Zoomers and millennials, they didn't live through the civil rights movement. They didn't live through Birmingham in the 60s or the KKK in the 40s and 50s.
No.
But they're worse than that generation.
Well,
give me a break.
Sheila Jackson Lee is not a millennial or a Zoomer. She's a baby boomer, but she's hanging in there, and she's talking about, this was on the floor of Congress today, talking about COVID and racism.
Stands on the basis of facts. There is no doubt that we have been impacted. That DNA in the trajectory of slavery to today. For example, at COVID, Black African Americans got COVID at a rate nearly 1.5 times higher than that of white people, or hospitalized at a rate nearly 4 times higher and 3 times likely to die. COVID hit us very desperately. Interestingly, a recent peer-reviewed study from Harvard Medical School suggests that reparations for African Americans could have cut COVID-19 transmission and infection rates both among blacks and the population at large.
I don't know how reparations would have. Okay. That's
just ridiculous.
Sadly known a few people who have died from COVID. every single one of them that I can think of was white.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
What about in Italy? They wiped out the whole half the damn country.
Yeah.
They're not black.
No.
They're Italian. They're European.
You know, this whole idea that COVID was racist, I mean, Sheila Jackson Lee personally probably doesn't know many white people. She doesn't want to really associate with white people. So it may seem to her that the only people who died were black because that's the only people she associates with. You know, I've heard other people say what she's saying about the racism behind COVID and it impacted minorities at a higher rate. I don't see how that's possible. I just don't understand how that's possible. People that got COVID during that time.
But Harvard says so.
Well, a bunch of liberal jerks. I just don't see where that's coming from.
I don't know if she really believes that. She probably does.
Oh, she's pretty sick.
She's just pandering to her base.
No. She's
talking
nuts.
about reparations to just keep. If they keep talking about reparations, people will keep voting her in. But yeah, she probably is a true believer.
Believe it. She believes it.
And
Sheila Jackson Lee.
Some people just have a victim mentality, and they're just a victim of every circumstance on the planet.
Well, Sheila Jackson Lee years ago was the first. She used to be more mainstream. She's been in Congress a long time, but she used to be more mainstream than she is now.
You don't see her on TV too much.
No, she used to be like at the front of everything in the news, and she hasn't been for years. But she was really one of the first people that was an elected official in Congress who talked about giving voting rights to convicted felons. And this is crazy. Sheila Jackson Lee she wanted to go a step further. Not only did she want to give voting rights to convicted felons, she wanted to give voting rights to the incarcerated. I'm serious as I swear to you. I'm serious as a heart attack.
Well, those are all would be voters for her.
They would be Democrat. Well, unless they went to the white collar prisons, we might get some votes in the white collar prison.
Those are all voters for her.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
that's why she wanted that.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to talk about this because everyone's talking about this, and there's something that really just burns me up. And I really gotta share this, okay? There's several things happening right now that are very scandalous with Democrats where investigations are happening, okay? The FTX crypto Democrat money laundering operation. And today there was a big press conference with the House Republicans. There are multiple investigations that they're going to launch into Joe Biden, okay? Not just the laptop, into his business dealings. And I am so tired of hearing people say nothing is going to happen with this. Okay, here's the deal. Congressional investigations are not criminal courts of law, and people don't typically go to jail. You know, the only people that typically go to jail are Republicans. They get in trouble for lying to Congress. There was some people that went to jail during Watergate. They were Republicans. And then some very good people who worked for President Trump have gone to jail. You guys know who all that is. Listen, no one with a household name is going to jail for anything. O.J. Simpson wasn't even a politician, and he got away with killing two people.
On both sides. It's not just Democrats, it's everybody.
Robert Blake murdered his wife. He didn't go to jail. So, you know, famous people, not just politicians, typically get away with it. Look at Alec Baldwin.
This is all a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
Okay, they're all part of the same cog, and they're all friends. They all play golf together. They go on TV and go after each other to help get reelected and to let their voters make it look like they're doing
something. The thing. Okay, like Alec Baldwin killed a woman, shot another. Not only is he not in jail or arrested or prosecuted, he now has the goal to sue people who worked on the Rust movie like they did something wrong. And, you know, I use those celebrity examples, Robert Blake, O.J. Simpson, and Alec Baldwin, okay? No prison time. They all three of them killed someone, right? But look at how it's impacted their life. O.J. Simpson, I know it's been a long time and it doesn't seem that way now. O.J. Simpson was a big star. He made TV movies. In fact, he had just filmed a new television pilot right before he killed his wife and Ron Goldman. He was in movies. He was in big movies, the Naked Gun movies. I just saw a movie with him over the weekend, Capricorn 1. I love that movie. I've seen that movie a bunch of times. His career's over. He made millions of dollars as a sportscaster for NBC Sports. Robert Blake was not as big of a star at that point, but he was still a working actor who got roles. He doesn't work anymore. Alec Baldwin is on his way out. He's no longer a movie star. He's getting a little work here and there. That's going to fade away. And it relates to these politicians. These investigations do damage to these people.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll give you an example. The Clintons. Bill Clinton, his post-presidency is a life of mediocre things. Okay, I know they had their Clinton Foundation and stole a lot of money.
Does he have his library done yet?
Yeah, sure. Where do you think he has
Arkansas?
sex? He has sex with women in the Oval Office replica there.
That's right. I forgot about that.
But, you know, Bill Clinton, because of the scandals and the investigations around him, Hillary Clinton didn't become president ever. You know, she lost to Trump, but she lost to Obama first. And it was because of the scandals and investigations around the Clintons that made her unelectable as president of the United States. She got elected to the Senate because when she got elected to the Senate, her husband was still president and ran the party, and they made it happen. But those investigations saved this country from Hillary Clinton. Bill Clinton's post-presidential life has been a life of nothingness because of those investigations. These things do damage to them. There's this standard that, well, no one's going to go to jail over this. Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and by the way, Joe Biden's brother and sister are up to their eyeballs in crime too. You know, his sister, Biden's sister, has run all of his campaigns, all of them. So, she's pulled some money, and his brother, who's another bum, is like an international real estate mogul. Okay, give me a break, right? Like Trump. Yeah, it's all crooked deals. Those people aren't going to go to jail, but it's going to do damage to them. Now, this FTX thing, this is massive. And I just want to talk about that just a bit, because we found out that the Democrats were using taxpayer money to give to Zelensky, and Zelensky was giving the money to the crypto guy, and then he would donate 30% of it, a little more than 30% of it, to the Democrats. And the Democrats ran their entire midterm campaign on this crypto cash. Have any of you wondered why they did that? It's not just because they're thieves. The Democrats were not able to raise enough money from the donors on their own to run their midterm elections. So they had to get involved in this money laundering scheme. That's pretty revealing. Mm-hmm. And, this, crypto there's all kinds of criminal activity happening through cryptocurrency. This is only one. And it's a big one. And while no one famous is going to go to jail over this FTX scandal is going to be big over the next year. This financial scandal is not just the largest financial scandal in U.S. history. I haven't put the numbers to it because the billions go up every day. It's almost 30 billion now. If you took the 5 biggest financial scandals after this one and combined them, they probably would not equal what this one is. Too many people lost money, okay, for this not to become a huge scandal. Look at Bernie Madoff. They're going to make movies about this. And the most interesting part of it all is this Democrat campaign financing money laundering operation through Ukraine. This is one of this probably is the biggest crime ever committed by people in our government. And I'll tell you something, Nancy Pelosi's PAC took that money. So her PAC that was that was working on the midterm elections did it with the FTX money. And while Donald Trump is primarily responsible for Pelosi no longer being speaker, okay, Pelosi when she was speaker before and she lost the speakership, she still stayed the Democrat leader in the House. And she's walking away from that too. And I'm telling you, it's because of this FTX scandal. She's getting out of Dodge because this FTX scandal will send people in prison who work for all of these people. And it is big. And these investigations into Hunter Biden, these House investigations, because I heard people today say, Jim Jordan, the other guy, no one's going to go to jail over this. You and I know about all these crooked deals that Joe and Hunter Biden were involved in. Mm-hmm. The average person that you're in line with at Walmart doesn't, because the news have covered them up. And when there's these House hearings into FTX and into all of these between Hunter and Joe deals, people are going to be shocked. And I'll tell you, there's a big one. The strategic oil reserve that Biden has been emptying out. He's been selling a lot of that oil to China. And the company that he's been selling it to in China is a company that Hunter has ownership in. Okay? So, Joe, think about this. And this is going to come out in these hearings. Biden's not going to...
People have to stop using the fact about jail as like the reason for not looking into this stuff. That can't be... It's like, well, they're not going to go to jail, so who cares? That can't be, what decides what's important to you is if somebody goes to jail or not. That's irrelevant. People rarely go to jail for these things.
Not these famous
people. There might be one or two scapegoats, underlings that get jammed up, but nobody at the top. It's never going to happen. But why it's important is it brings these things to light, and it gets people talking about it. And there are people that go that don't go unscathed. It affects them in different ways. But it's important to talk about it. I talked to my mom today about the crypto thing. She had no idea about any of that. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what, really? And I said, yeah. And it's important to not only talk about it, tell your friends, let them know, discuss it at work, let people know what's going on. And, you might have liberal friends or coworkers that are like, oh, whatever, but they still need to hear it, and that it'll still be in the back of their mind. And, if something else comes about, then they'll know about it, and they'll recall what you told them. It's important to discuss. It's important to bring it to light. If you use the litmus test, well, nobody's going to go to jail, so why even talk about it? That doesn't make any sense to me. It needs to be brought out in the open, and people need to know about it,
in this House,
regardless of the outcome.
In this House press conference today, I was so excited to hear, because I read an article weeks ago on Weasel Zippers or in the Gateway Pundit about it. It was a tiny article, no follow-up, and then they referenced it today about Biden selling energy from the reserves to China. I want you to think about what happened here. Biden empty out our reserves, selling the oil to China to a company that his family has ownership in. That is criminal. He's emptying out the reserves.
There's so much going on.
To line his pockets. They're going to look into that. Now, Joe's not going to go to jail, but he and the other Democrats around him will be forever damaged by it. And the American people, like Kathy's mother, didn't know about the FTX scandal. She watches the news a lot, and the news have been covering up all of this. Now, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters for their support. And those of you that are new Patreon supporters, welcome, and make sure you take advantage of the perks, which by the way, Patreon supporters, you have access to commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And those of you that are new Patreon supporters, let me just tell you how that works. You've been to the Patreon page, right? The Patreon page is kind of a ripoff of the Facebook format. It's not Facebook, but it's a ripoff of the format. And if you go to the Patreon page, I put every podcast episode up there, commercial-free, and only Patreon supporters have access to it. So that's where you access that at if you want the commercial-free edition. And our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you on each and every episode. The names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters, and I want to thank all of them. Andrew and Connie, Christine, Coral Springs Gary, ETW, Chuck, D, Pamela, Rick, Nick, Wesley, Macho, and Rome, Wisconsin. These are our top Patreon supporters. Now, if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this and every episode of the program. There's also a direct link on my website, briancraigshow.com. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
The Payne County Flea Market will be hosting its last event for 2022 on November 19th. The Payne County Flea Market is a marketplace where vendors across Payne County and beyond come to share and sell their crafts and more. If you have a garage full of stuff, it's selling time, y'all. This event is free to the public. Every visit to the Payne County Flea Market is a new experience. Whether you're looking for trinkets, tools, handcrafted items, a deal, or a new hobby, we're always welcoming new vendors, artists, food trucks, trucks, and even online resellers. For more info, please visit thePayneCountyFleaMarket.com. Bring your family and friends for a day of adventure. We look forward to seeing you and your loved ones. thePayneCountyFleaMarket.com. Want to know where all the bodies are buried? Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool. Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob. Welcome to Mob-Ammy Beach. This book is a fictionalized account of Miltenberg working at a mob-owned Miami Beach hotel in the 70s. If you're a fan of The Godfather, Goodfellas, or The Sopranos, you will love this story that's full of colorful characters and wisecracking wise guys. It's a story with everything from Playboy bunnies and weaponized parrots to shattering the glass ceiling and getting away with murder, all in paradise. This is a wise guy tale you've never heard. Surrounded by pools, the trick for Bobby Moskowitz was not slipping in the one thicker than water. Bobby lived to tell the tales, and now you can read all about it. The funniest mob novel since Jimmy Breslin's The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool, from author Robert Allen Miltenberg, available on Amazon. Order your copy right now. Fill your heart with love and joy this holiday season. Order your copy of The Heart of Christmas, a book to help you prepare your heart for Christmas. Enjoy this beautiful season of hope and share your blessings with those in need. By author Heidi Dalton, The Heart of Christmas is a book and journal for anyone who loves Christmas and wants to make the holiday season meaningful for themselves and their loved ones. You'll learn to decorate your soul and how the sweet aroma of freshly baked cookies relates to your prayer life. You'll see how to intentionally wrap your gifts with love and enjoy meaningful family time with your loved ones. Connect with the feeling of Christmas like never before and feel Jesus' love as you reflect on the gifts that God has blessed us all with. The Heart of Christmas, from author and Christmas lover Heidi Dalton. Visit HeidiDalton.com or Amazon to order your copy for this holiday season right now.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You know, I was talking to people during a commercial break on the radio and the YouTube live chat that, because sometimes people ask me, what other shows do you listen to and what news do you watch? Kathy will tell you, I don't watch very much news at all. I like to do I'd read a lot, okay? And on social media, different news outlets and things like that. And I don't listen to other shows like this one. I don't listen to other political shows. I don't listen to other talk radio programs or other podcasts very often. Sometimes I listen to some podcasts. I'm talking about political podcasts. I listen to podcasts, but and I watch people that have YouTube shows, and I listen to the radio, but I don't listen to other talk shows. And the reason I don't is I don't want their opinions to influence my opinions. I don't want their story selection to influence my story selection. And so far as the news, the only time I really, really watch the news, you know, like the television news, is if there's breaking news going on, right? Like we had the election returns or President Trump's announcement. And that's a similar reason. I don't want the news to cloud my thinking as to what is important and what is not important. I want to go through all the news. I want to decide what I think is important to talk about. And I want to have my own opinions. You know, I use this example. I saw an interview with the director, Christopher Nolan. You guys know Christopher Nolan. He's done a whole bunch of some of the Batman movies and stuff. And he doesn't watch a lot of other movies because he said he doesn't want other movies to influence his screenwriting and directing into what things he does, which I thought, you know, that's kind of what I do. And CNN, you know, let me tell you, CNN is a criminal enterprise, and they always have been. And CNN became, I guess, legit during the first Gulf War in 1991. And what CNN did in the 1991 Gulf War was treasonous. And let me tell you what they did, okay? Now, the other networks, the other news outlets, because CNN was the only cable news outlet at the time, okay? CNN did not have any respect from the other news. They just didn't give them any respect. Oh, you're cable. You're not like real news like the networks. And then when the Gulf War happened, CNN was the only American outlet that had a reporter inside Iraq during the war, Peter Arnett. And Peter Arnett wasn't just reporting in Iraq. He was reporting Saddam Hussein's news, and he had someone from the Ministry of Truth in Iraq with him. And sometimes he would be doing a report and say, I can't talk about that and things like this. And CNN was spreading propaganda for Saddam Hussein on global television. And it was influencing all the media because they were the only one in Iraq. And then what happened? Peter Arnett got an award after the war for spreading Saddam Hussein's propaganda. And since they started doing that, they have become very self-important. And I give you an example, and Kathy's got an update on CNN. Mm-hmm. This is so important what's happening at CNN. CNN, and I know this sounds crazy, and a lot of you won't understand this or accept this because, because you kind of are focused on where you get your news and information. Oh, by the way, I do watch Steve Bannon, by the way. I will say that. That's one of the few I do watch. I will say that, Steve Bannon. But anyway, CNN in mainstream media circles is the news source of record. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? But they're the news source of record in the mainstream liberal news world. And oftentimes, you'll watch another network and they'll say, well, CNN has reported. And CNN won't even confirm a story unless they confirm. Well, this story that Donald Trump never had sex with Stormy Daniels has not been confirmed by CNN, so we're not going to accept that as true. I've heard that kind of talk many times on CNN. Mm-hmm. And CNN has become very snobby and have been pushing, and these people on CNN think they are gods and goddesses running our country. And now it's all coming home.
Well, the new boss, Chris Licht, confirms the network will see layoffs as early as December as ABC News boss suggests staff cuts and NBC Universal goes on a firing spree. So apparently a lot of these network news organizations are not doing well. Chris Licht confirmed on Tuesday the network would face layoffs at an all-hands company town hall. Licht did not apologize for previously indicating in the summer that they would not be forced to fire people, but he said he was speaking honestly at the time. So I would like to know who you guys think they're going to lay off. They're going to lay off some. Let's see. They got rid of Brian Stelter.
That was a big one.
Jeffrey Toobin and some other reporter I've never heard of. It says here.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Toobin.
John. Who is this guy they got rid of right here? John Harwood.
Oh, yeah. He was awful. He was terrible.
A layoff, it says here, as it relates to CNN, there are no layoffs per se. A layoff is a downsizing where you're given a target, and that is not happening at CNN. Licht said at a staff meeting in June. Then October, he wrote a memo that stated changes that affect people, budgets, and projects were coming. Said there would be a noticeable change to the organization. I think they're going to. This morning show with Don Lemon is horrible. It's the worst thing on TV. Don Lemon's gone, and maybe the two women with him. They're so bad. But I think he's going to be next.
Yeah.
I think who they'll keep Jake Tapper for some reason. They just think he's the greatest thing in the world. But I think Don Lemon will go, possibly Anderson Cooper. They really need to, and we've talked about this, they really need to clean house and just completely scrub everything off that network. Yeah. It's complete garbage. MSNBC, they have their niche, which is far left, Trump-hating radicalism. And CNN really doesn't have that full-on niche. They still have people on the network sometimes that are a little conservative. They still try to toe that line once in a while and try to maintain some level of credibility, but obviously nobody's watching them anymore. MSNBC is just full-on Trump-hating, Nicole Wallace mode, 24/7. They make no apologies, and they have a niche, and they're happy with it. I don't think they have any aspirations to become number one in anything. They just, spew their hate to their audience. Right. But CNN was on top. They're the original. They're the first network to be news 24/7. That's why people always look to CNN. And clearly since Trump's been around, they have really lost. Now, they had a lot of ratings when Trump was running and when Trump was in office. But I think the Russia thing really hurt these news networks.
It did.
Because they lied to people for 2 years, and then it came out that none of it happened. And I think a lot of these liberals that watch these networks get upset because they're like, well, you promised me that this was going to happen and you lied to me. So I think Don Lemon's going to go. Who else do you think in this next round of
They
layoffs?
need to get rid of everybody,
Who do you think they're going to get rid of first? That's my because
I think Don Lemon is on their top list because they moved him to mornings and took his own show away from him. So I think he's at the top of the list.
Where he was.
Oh, no, Anderson Cooper. They'll never get rid of Anderson Cooper. They expanded Anderson Cooper. I don't know who all else is on. But
got rid of Chris Cuomo. Yeah, that was a big one.
That was big.
Brian Stelter, Tubin, who cares? The other guy. But I think Don Lemon's the next big one.
Yeah, and, the news got crazy with Trump because they lost, in their minds, they lost power they thought they had. They thought they chose who the candidates were and everything else. And with the rise of Trump, they learned that they can't do that. And they've never recovered from Trump's victory because they're embarrassed. They're humiliated that they don't have the influence they used to have. But
it's true.
I really hope in this new run.
Well, their ratings are obviously in the toilet.
Oh yeah, I really hope in this new run for President Trump that he does not watch the cable news.
I think
I hope he stays away from it.
I think with Carrie Lake, and I really did like her. And you and I talked about her one mistake of alienating pretty much everybody who wasn't a Trump supporter. That was one mistake. But another thing she did, and it's probably just occupational hazard, she was obsessed with calling out the media. And I think it's good to call the media out, but not in every press conference.
DeSantis does it sometimes, yeah.
Well, he only does it if he has to. But with her, it was an ongoing thing.
Well, that's because that's her profession.
Right. And like I said, it's an occupational hazard. But she is not going to change the media. Neither is Donald Trump. They are who they are. They're all liberal. And they lie and they make crap up to sell papers. And Brian and I have been watching these old interviews by Vietnam vets, and they talk about from 50 years ago the lies that were being told in the media then. This is nothing new. It's propaganda. It's lies. The government has a hand in it, and they decide what is disseminated to the people. That is never going to change. Donald Trump, DeSantis, Carrie Lake, they're never going to change the media. So they need to stop trying. And I like Carrie Lake, so please don't get me wrong, but I kind of got tired of her constantly sparring with the press over and over and over again and calling them to the carpet. I agree with what she was saying, but these people they're not going to change for her. They're not going to quit their jobs like she did and have like her Jerry Maguire moment where Renee Zellweger follows him out of the office because he has morals. That's not going to happen. These people, they laugh at her. So I don't think it's worth any bit of energy at all to waste on trying to make the press honorable. It's never going to happen. And when Trump would get in these back and forth fights, it was fun at first. But after a while, I would get frustrated and I'd be like, he needs to focus on what he's doing and his policies and talk about that instead of sparring with Jim Acosta every time it gets old to me. Well, he's not going to change Jim Acosta.
I don't totally agree with that. But what I do think,
but
though,
do you see what I'm saying?
I just don't totally agree with it. But this is what I think we can all do to best combat the media. Don't watch it because
look what's happening.
You don't give them the ratings, and
that's exactly right.
That's
what will change their tone, not Carrie Lake yelling at them.
Go to Newsmax, put Newsmax on all your televisions. So they get the ratings.
America's Voice.
Real America's Voice, if you've got that. And don't put Fox on, CNN, or MSNBC.
People are still, like you said, are still clearly watching Fox. Yeah. And I think for conservatives, even though they don't want to admit it, they really are having a hard time shaking free of Fox News because they do have some good shows in there. The Five is good. Gutfeld is
People
great.
Like
Tucker. Some like Hannity, they do have shows that, seem pro-Trump and pro-conservative. and people want to watch those things. But clearly people are still watching that network and that's fine. But the only way you will change the tone of the news is, like Brian said, is to not watch it anymore.
Here's what
That's
I would
the only way.
Here's what I would recommend. Okay. And I think that, I know this will sound crazy to some of you and all this stuff. And you'll say, well, there's something better, But if you want to start changing the news, not only do you not watch MSNBC, CNN, or Fox, put Newsmax on all of your televisions, okay? Newsmax is number 4 in cable news. If we can make them number 3, that would start to wake up the rest of the media, the cable news, and say, well, wait a minute, because I've been watching Newsmax this week. I've got them on, and they're very pro-Trump. They're reporting on all the right things. Instead
of watching Jesse, watch Rob Schmidt.
That's right.
He's way better.
And
way better.
If we could make Newsmax number 3 and beat MSNBC, which can't be that hard because MSNBC is so lowly rated, people in cable news would start to say, well, what's going on? What's happening here? We better watch. They'll start to say, well, we better maybe look at this. And that's the best thing you can do.
Fox is not going to change anything.
I'm done with
Fox. People are watching them.
I'm done with it.
And they still have the top spot. They still have the same numbers. Brian and I don't watch Fox anymore. We used to watch Outnumbered all the time. Now I do watch Gutfeld sometimes, but that's it. We don't watch any Fox anymore. We haven't in like a month.
And that goes for Tucker.
And no, we don't watch any of that. We watch Rob Schmidt now. But they clearly still have those numbers. So people are still watching them, and I understand. But the only way you will get them to make any kind of a change in their tone is to just turn them off.
That's
and
right.
that will be, wake them up a little bit.
All right, listen, guys, we're out of time, but we will be back next time. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. If you would like to advertise on the podcast, go to my website, briancraigshow.com, and send us an email there at briancraigshow.com. Tell us what you're interested in advertising, and if you have a link or information about your business or whatever it is you're interested in advertising, please include that in the email. So go to briancraigshow.com and email us there. All right, everyone, we will talk to you next time.
Parents, grandparents, and teachers, there's a book for your middle schooler that you don't want to miss. Zoya's Journey, a children's book that brings magic to life. Join Zora on her adventure of self-understanding, growth, and acceptance. If you're a fan of adventure stories with a magical touch, you'll fall in love with Zoya's Journey. It features gorgeous, awe-inspiring illustrations for both children and adults to enjoy, bringing the story to life with every page. Zoya's Journey will teach your children the importance of being resilient and encourage them to love themselves for who they are. Be a part of Zoya's Journey. Visit Zoya's Journey on Kickstarter.com to contribute and get your copy of the book Zoya's Journey on Kickstarter.